Military grade D.O.T legal beadlocks for your four-wheel drive? Stay tuned. And welcome back to another video in the Stingray Giveaway Gladiator build series. And today we're going to be talking about the Hutchinson Rock Monster Beadlock wheels. It's a two-piece aluminum beadlock wheel that features an internal double beadlocking system that's the same as used by every U.S. military vehicle that has beadlocks on it. Now, Hutchinson has been building those military beadlock wheels, and they've taken that technology and transferred it to a line of wheels for the civilian market. They're heavy duty, and best of all, they meet all D.O.T specs. Now we're going to be wrapping them around a set of Nitto Trail Grappler MTs. More on those later, but let's take a closer look at those Hutchinson wheels and show you how to assemble them. Now we unpacked one of the Hutchinson beadlock wheels, and this is what you get in the box. You have your beadlock wheel assembly and the necessary hardware to put it together. The beadlock wheel assembly consists of the outer rim shell, the inner beadlocking ring, and your inner rim shell. You have the sealing O-ring, which goes between the inner and outer rim shell to make it airtight. Your center cap, the TPMS bracket and its hardware. These little plastic covers to cover up the studs and nuts if you desire. And then these trick little two-piece locking nuts that are specifically designed to lock the two rim shell halves together. Now you've probably seen how a typical beadlock wheel uses an outer ring to clamp the outer bead of your tire up against the main barrel of the wheel and holds it there. The Hutchinson wheel is a little bit different. It's going to use this inner beadlocking ring to clamp both the inner bead and the outer bead of the tire in place. So once you bolt these two wheel halves together, it's got those inner bead locks locked in, and they're locked in very safe and secure. So safe and secure that Hutchinson stamps their wheels or casts in their wheels D.O.T right on the side of the flange where it's plain to see. And what they're doing is announcing to the world that these Hutchinson beadlocks meet the USA Department of Transportation specs. And that's what makes these beadlocks so special. Now the Hutchinson beadlock already comes with a rubber valve stem installed, but we've removed those and installed a set of the Apex rapid air down valves. Now we're going to grab our beadlock ring, and if you look, you've got a hole, and 180 degrees out is another hole. And this one has a little hole right alongside of it. And that's for your TPMS bracket to mount. So if you're going to run a TPMS, we need to install our sensor and then bolt it in place. Now for our valve stem, we had to open it up a 1/16 of an inch. I'm going to throw a little soapy water on the valve stem. And we're just going to pull up on our valve stem, and there she goes. Now this bracket's going to install using this little locking pin assembly, and it's going to come right up through this hole. So we want to make sure that hole's pretty clear, and to do that you can grab a drill bit of the exact same size and just run it down. And then you want to use the female side of the anchoring screw. Push that down through. We're going to throw a little bit of Loctite on the screw and thread that screw down. Now it may seem easier to try to install this bracket and then pull the valve stem through, but we've ended up bending that bracket before. It's easiest just to install the valve stem the way we showed you and then fight that little screw in place. We're going to take the locking screw and a 1/4 inch socket and just run that right down, and that'll lock that sensor bracket right in place. We can then take our TPMS sensor, bolt that into the valve stem. Okay. And now we're going to take our inner beadlock ring, squish it down. Once we have it there, we can grab a hold of it and rotate it. Now, as you can see, you've got the outer bead here, and we've got our inner bead right here, and that beadlock ring is going to be right between the two of them. Now here you can see this is our inner hardware assembly for that TPMS bracket. This is an air channel. You want to make note where your air channels are. Now we're going to take some soapy water, and this is just dishwashing liquid with a little bit of water mixed in. And we're going to liberally coat this bead. Now what I want to do is I'm going to look at, you have these 3 taller studs. And as we go across, we've got 5 smaller studs between each of the taller studs. I want to pick 2 of the studs to line up my air channel. Put the air channel right between 2 of the studs. So as I'm looking at this air channel right here, I'm lining it up with these 2 studs right in the center. And then I'm going to push this inner rim shell all the way down. Now if you have a super tight bead, you can grab a rubber or plastic mallet. Now grab the tire and flip it 180. Then you want to grab a couple 2x4s, and we're going to lift up and set that underneath so that it supports that inner rim shell. We're going to want to make sure this outer bead is also real clean. We're going to take our outer rim shell and turn it upside down. And just give it a white back on this back face. If you look at the back of the outer rim shell, you'll see this O-ring groove here. And this is for that large white O-ring. Now we're going to want to make sure that we wipe down that O-ring. And then we're going to want to use a little bit of lube to lubricate it. You can use all kinds of different things, Vaseline. We like to use this number 105 motor assembly grease. And work it all the way around this O-ring. So this O-ring is the sealing O-ring, and it's going to seal the 2 rim shell halves together to make it airtight. That's what's going to help hold the air in the wheel. So you got to make sure that this is clean and it's lubricated and there's no cuts, nicks, and we don't want that O-ring twisted. Now we can grab our soapy water and lube up this outer rim shell. Now we want to grab some anti-seize. We're using nickel. And you want to do a nice job anti-seizing these studs. You'll see some people actually even Loctite them. We like to see anti-seize. That'll help those nuts go on easier, and it'll make it easier when it comes time to tear apart if you need to service this. Now we want to pay real close attention to our valve stem and line it up with the air channel that's between the two shorter studs you chose earlier. Now we're going to take 3 of the locking nuts and we're going to run them down on the longer studs. All right, then on these special locking nuts, you want to make sure that you line them up so your socket drops down and gets into both hexes. Same thing here. And now we're just going to run these down until the other studs stick far enough up to get nuts on them. Try to keep it fairly even. Now that we have the stud sticking proud of this outer rim shell, we can start installing the rest of the nuts. Now we do want to line up all those double nuts. Now this, once you have the nuts down quite a few threads, you can then resort to some power. Run these down in a star pattern. Then get out your torque wrench. And we're going to start with 80 foot-pounds. And again, we're going to go in a star pattern. So we're going to start just by doing our 3 taller studs. And then we're going to split that difference and go to that center stud between each of the taller studs. All right, now we can take the bolt just to the right of the taller stud. Now we're going to take the nut to the left of the taller stud. And of course, this is my right, my left. Now we're going to kick up to 100. So grab your favorite air gauge and add some air. There we go. So we've got them aired up to 35 PSI. We just got a few more of these to do, and then it's time for the spin balance. Now for tires, we decided to go with the Nitto Trail Grappler MTs. This is more of a traditional mud tire style tread. It's got the big blocky lugs and wide open tread voids between each lug. Now for Nitto, they took these big lugs and split them with a sipe that allow these tread lugs to kind of flex a little bit, which will give you better traction off-road. But it's still a good on-road tire. And we were kind of arguing, hey, do we go with the milder Ridge Grappler or do we go with the Trail Grappler for overland vehicle? But since we're going to be out actually wheeling this and camping in this, we wanted to stay with a more aggressive tire that's going to give us better traction. Now, this Trail Grappler is not as aggressive as the uber aggressive Nitto Mud Grappler. And then you also have on the very other end of the spectrum, and that's the Terra Grappler that is a true all-terrain. So Nitto has you covered for many different tread patterns for whatever you're going to do with your four-wheel drive vehicle. So there you go, those Hutchinson Beadlocks Nitto tires mounted on the Giveaway Gladiator. Hit that comment box down below and let us know what you think of this wheel and tire package. And then of course, are you ready for a set of wheels and tires for your vehicle? You can get Hutchinson Beadlocks and Nitto tires from us here at Northridge 4x4. You can check that description box down below for links for that full line of Hutchinson Rock Monster Beadlocks. Also, all those different tires from Nitto Tires, those Trail Grapplers, Terra Grapplers, Ridge Grapplers, Mud Grapplers in sizes from 31 to 42 inches tall, and for a 15-inch wheel all the way up to a 26-inch wheel, of course, depending on the tread pattern you choose. So, thanks for watching our video. We'll see you again.